Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Basketball Maestros podcast. If you are a video listener, you can see that Daniel's not here today. He is currently traveling. So, brought in a special guest here today for my internship at Back Sports page, Rob Korensky.
Thank
Welcome.
you, sir. Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. If you want to introduce yourself, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am currently the NBA editor for Back Sports page. I've been writing for them since August, I believe, of last year. I love what I do there. We're still working towards getting the website to where we want it to be, but I'm very encouraged by where it's going. I've covered content for the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, NFL, and the PGA Tour. So I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to sports writing.
Do you have a favorite NBA team? I don't think I've ever known.
I would say so. I was born right outside of Chicago in
Oh, okay.
Hinsdale, so I'm a big Bulls fan personally. I try to stay as objective as possible, but the Bulls are one of the banes of my existence this year because they've just I can't even begin to describe how disappointing they are as a team. They might scrape into the play-in, but they're still. I do not understand how they can exist the way they do. But
You know, um, we're going to talk about LeBron in a second. I'm going to talk about that Lakers Bulls game in a second. I have a
oh,
lot
there
of
we go.
thoughts on that. But starting off with, I'm sure a team everybody expected great things from, the Charlotte Hornets,
Mm,
being playoff spoilers this time around, picking up 2 wins against the Dallas Mavericks. Without Terry Rozier, without LaMelo Ball, without Kelly Oubre, just basically just a bunch of scraps, just playing hard, and you got to respect it. I caught the end of the game against OKC last night, and the Thunder, without Shea, still put up. They had three guys with 30 plus points. I believe Giddy,
mm,
J Dub, and I forget who the other. Oh, Isaiah Joe. So they had
mm,
three guys with 30 plus points. We're not able to pull it out. Giddy missed a key free throw to tie at the end of the game, and Svi Mikhailuk was able to put it away. But Charlotte Hornets really dampering some hopes in the Western Conference. Dallas Mavericks at this point in time still on the outside looking in. Granted, they are tied with the OKC Thunder at this point in time. I believe both of those teams play today at the time of this recording, so we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, the Hornets, they've been disappointing all year long in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes.
true.
And
Well,
yeah, man.
they really are embodying their actual team name because Hornets in real life are certainly a pain in the ass. So they they've been doing that lately. I've been pretty impressed with that, especially I think what it was PJ Washington went out for like 43 points the
Yeah.
other night. So the fact that they like you said, they don't have LaMelo and they're lacking other pieces, and the fact that they're still finding a way to just either spoil some playoff hopes, get some playing time to some guys that may not be uh, either competing for a roster spot next year or they're trying to improve their stock going into free agency. So, I mean, it's kind of a free for all there, and it's exciting to watch. I mean, it's especially when you get guys that are just they're the most dangerous, I think, when you really don't have anything to play for and you're just
Hmm.
letting it fly, you know and that's a player like that, PJ Washington, Dennis Smith Jr. too. I mean, he's having
Yeah.
a resurgence too. So those that Hornets team, man, they're especially with the Mavericks, that one was a
Yeah.
huge blow.
Yeah, that I believe it was Saturday when they played, and I woke up and checked the score, and they're already down double digits. And I thought, there's no way they lose them twice. They battled back. Luca put up 40 in that game, and ultimately could not get it done. And that kind of transitions into the Dallas Mavericks.
Mm,
Mark Cuban made a big swing move for Kyrie Irving at the trade deadline. Um, Me being a Lakers fan, I was kind of hoping that we were able to pull it off for the second time,
yeah.
but unfortunately couldn't get it done. And Mark Cuban kind of made this move, gave up pieces that were really valuable. Many people probably didn't think it would be this vital, but Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie on the way out, two guys that were pretty vital to their depth, and they kind of just relied on their offensive firepower. We're just going to outscore people, not defend anybody, but we'll be
Right.
able to outscore people. And we're kind of seeing the side effects of that. I believe they're 3-8 when both of them played, and they've just not been able to gel it at all. They're able to beat the Pacers handily last night, as you would kind of expect after those past two games. But um, I think at this point in time, they were kind of solidified as a 6 seed before this trade, and now they've kind of just fallen all the way down in the standings. And we'll see how they fare. They got probably 6, 7 games left at this point. I don't think they're going to be able to climb up that hill, getting that 6 seed with just you have the Lakers playing good basketball. You have the Pelicans were streaking before that. Warriors lost last night. And you have the Warriors holding down that 6 seed as well. And what are your thoughts on the Mavericks? Do you think they're able to put it together down this final stretch?
I was looking at, so to me it comes down to um it's going to come down to the Thunder and Mavericks for
Yeah.
that play-in spot there. And I was looking at the schedules here for those two teams, right? And I think the Mavericks are currently 11th right now, trying to look on the other side looking in, and they have to play the Sixers, the Heat, the Hawks, the Kings, Bulls, and Spurs. So to me, out of all those, the Spurs are an easy win.
Yeah.
But the rest of those teams, the way that they've been playing lately, I don't think any of those are easy wins,
No.
especially looking at, the Kings and Sixers. I don't see them getting past them. And so if they drop 3 to 4 games out of this stretch, man, they're in trouble, And then you look at the Thunder schedule here. They've got the Pistons, Pacers, Suns, Golden State, the Jazz, and the Grizzlies. So they still, both of them have, in terms of strength of schedule, are comparable. Although I would say that the Pistons and Pacers are going to be easier wins for that team. But um, I when the trade happened on paper, I saw how it could work. I
Hmm.
I tend to be a more optimistic basketball fan, because when I look at it, like, okay, so if you stretch out, the minutes and everything so that you never have both of them off the floor at the same time. That way you've got the playmaking, the scoring, um, and just keep it stretched out enough. If you can if Jason Kidd can figure out those minutes, then I thought in theory, that could potentially work. But the subtraction of Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, I don't think many people could have fathomed how uh, valuable they were as pieces. Because you look at Kyrie Irving, and offensively, of course, he's Kyrie Irving. He's one of the
Yeah.
greatest ball handlers of all time. He's an elite finisher around the rim. But Spencer Dinwiddie, about I think around 3 inches taller, 4 inches taller than Kyrie, much better defender. And you're still getting a lot of the same shot creation. He's a very good outside shooter. He can get to the rim. But he's just not a selfish player. Dinwiddie is he's going to do the things that you need to win, and
Hmm.
he played very well in last year's playoffs. And then Dorian Finney-Smith is I would say, I wouldn't call him elite for his position, but he's up there. He's a very good defender, and his offensive capabilities aren't anything to write home about, but he still contributes within that offense. And if they would have just maintained, or I think one of the biggest weaknesses they had was at the 4 and the 5. They've got Christian Wood, who's excellent offensively, but defensively he has some
Not good.
faults. Yeah, he's like a traffic cone sometimes. But if they could have gotten a solid and outside of like JaVale McGee, like a solid five that could play that position kind of more as a help defender with Wood and kind of make up for his defensive liabilities, and maybe be a rim runner, someone that was solid defensively. I felt like if the Mavericks would have done that at the deadline, they would have not only maintained the position that they were in at the 6th seed, maybe crept up to the 5 at most, but they'd be looking in a lot better shape right now. And the addition of Kyrie Irving just threw everything off really
and
badly.
and then kind of fast forwarding, kind of do some like future predictions. Say they make it to the 10-9 seed, they
Mhm.
ultimately get bounced at the play-in. What do you think happens? Do you think the Dallas Mavericks in the front office strive to keep Kyrie around? Do you think Kyrie's going to want to leave? And say Kyrie walks, where do they go from there? Because you can't really do much.
No, then that's I tell you what, that's a raw deal, a real raw deal if that's what transpires, because they gave up those picks and two pretty solid assets to get
Yeah,
him. And I could, the one thing about I with Kyrie is, the rumors were there that he wanted to go to the Lakers and rejoin LeBron, but now that the Lakers have made the moves that they had, they likely will not be able to acquire him now unless he's like willing to go way under in terms of salary. But um, with the Mavericks, I don't know if they just like double down on the move and just be like, you know what,
yeah.
let's throw a bunch of money at him and just figure it out. Um, and the one person I think we kind of need to talk about in this equation that I don't know if is getting mentioned enough in terms of the media is Jason Kidd. I
Yep.
think that the team that they've got, even with its uh, uh, defense or lack thereof, I still feel like they could have put this together in a way that they could have, I think, reasonably could still be a 7 or 8 seed right now if Jason Kidd would have gotten a little bit more creative and put together some better rotations around these two. But um, I don't know what you do with as if I'm in the Mavericks front office, I'm just like, man, like we may have bit off a bit more than we can chew with this. This is not good, and um, it's not even really all Kyrie's fault. Like, I'm not going to completely throw him under the bus here, but um, it's the move never should have been made. I mean, that I think when it comes down to it, they they had a shot at a superstar. It was not the right superstar.
Hmm.
With Luca, they needed to add a guy that could play off ball, a slasher, a good shooter, 3-and-D, kind of all in the same body. But I don't think that was even available at that time. And I I think the Mavericks from here, they may just need to say, you know what, let's bite the bullet here, try it again, and maybe let Kyrie walk and just kind of chalk that up as a mistake. But I'm not sure how you proceed after that. With the fan base and with Luka too. I think you may
Hmm.
have already alienated Luka Doncic to the point where he may want out. Who knows? But
I mean, if you just beat the Hornets twice, you're tied with Minnesota for that 7th spot.
right,
it's yeah.
yeah.
I've looked at Mavs Twitter. I've seen all the funny replies about Jason Kidd, and uh, I know when he was an assistant for the Lakers in that championship year, a lot of people kind of viewed him as the, I guess, predecessor of Frank Vogel,
Hmm.
and when he left, I was kind of sad. His first year in Dallas, he had a really good defensive team. Granted, the roster had the players like Dorian Finney-Smith and all those guys,
Yeah.
and now they've just completely fallen off. And do you think Jason Kidd's on the way out if things don't go as planned, or still give him like at least a full year to figure out what to do with this roster and add
Yeah,
any players if needed?
I think they might give him a full year, but I think uh, it's really only because it's Jason Kidd. He played for the
Hmm.
organization and helped them win a championship, and I think that he might have a little bit more leash than I think most other coaches in this situation, and plus the name recognition itself. But um, he might get another year, and if they can't put it together, he might be getting his walking papers because I
Hmm.
there's some things that, like, especially this year, having I was able to attend Dallas Mavericks Media Day as a member of Back Sports Page, and one of the things that came out from that very early on was that um, Kid wanted to have Christian Wood coming off the bench as a six man, and I think very early on that didn't work, and
Yeah.
he didn't give up on that, and I think they let that big little experiment that he had going go on for too long, and I just think that there's been things here and there this year, and then after the acquisition of Irving, I just think that there's a lot of question marks about Jason Kidd's coaching style, especially with that roster. So I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go earlier than that, but I think they might give him the courtesy of another year to just see what he can do. But it's not looking good.
Yeah, that's fair. And then moving on to some player shutdowns that we have going on. Starting off with the first of two, we have Mr. Benjamin Simmons. Just recently had a story come out about him. Obviously,
Yeah.
his time in Brooklyn has not been what NBA fans imagined. I assume Brooklyn Nets fans can't say they're too happy about it either. Obviously, was involved in the James Harden blockbuster at last year's trade deadline. Didn't suit up due to a back issue. Rumors that he would come back in game four against Boston, but they're already heading towards a sweep. So it didn't necessarily make sense to bring him back. And then you head into a full year with Ben Simmons on your roster. Um, the headline was just Kyrie, KD, Ben Simmons. Let's see how that can work. In a matter of months, both of those guys are gone. Ben Simmons is left on his own, just with a bunch of young guys. He's only played 42 games this year and started for 33 of them, averaged career lows, 6.9 points, 6.1 assists, 6.3 rebounds, all career lows for him so far. And just to cherry on top, he's making like $35 million this year, and it's only going to go up from here the final 2 years
Yeah,
of his
that
deal.
doesn't help.
So now there is kind of just speculation about his back issue, if it's more long term than they think, if he's even going to be able to return. And sure enough, I thought he was going to get shut down. And Jacques Vaughn announced the other day that he is shut down for the year. And now that kind of just leaves us with what's next for him. And don't really know how the Nets are going to find a role for him and if it's necessarily going to work out. This offseason is going to open the door of if they're even able to find a trade for him, which I don't think any team's going to want to trade assets for a guy who averages 6 points on $35 million. So, I mean, in the Philly days, he showed definite promise, all defensive player, um, had some all star nods as well. He was just overall showing good trajectory, was kind of able to do it all, find his spots. But ultimately, it's just been a downhill climb from here since he's on his way out in Philly. He had all that media attention on him. the infamous practice where he had his phone in his pocket and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So has not been pretty to say the least. And kind of just the question to you is, what do you think is next for Ben Simmons?
Well, I want to circle back to Jacques Vaughn because
Hmm.
I that the quote that he had about Ben Simmons was so damning that where he talked about, okay, if I put him next to a big, we worry about the spacing. If I pair him next to a playmaker, can he play off ball? Like Jacques Vaughn, without saying it, basically said like, I can't do anything with this
Yep.
guy. Like where do I put him to make him productive? And now it's like, with that back injury, towards the end there, he wasn't even defending well. So it's just like he can't shoot. He's not driving to the basket well. He's not being aggressive. And
Hmm.
now he's just letting guys blow by him. And so, you know, I would have to imagine that the back injury, he recovers from that. Um, he's still probably going to be a good defender. I mean, he's got great size, great lateral quickness, length, and just the instincts. But I uh, I think that with the Nets, I don't know if you give him another full year and you get him whatever help he needs, and that um, I think you need to, if they're not already, which I wouldn't be surprised, that he needs to talk to a sports psychologist and
Hmm.
really like lock that down, because the part of this has to be physical issues, but I think a large portion of his problems are all up here,
Yep.
and uh, you know, mental health is important. I I struggled with depression in my late teens, early 20s, and I was able to kind of get some help for that, and then I kind of grew out of it, thankfully. But um, you know, it's it's difficult to focus and do your job and then have all the regular stresses and pressures of playing in the NBA. And um, if that is the case, of course, because I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I hope he's not lying about that, because that was the narrative before, and now it's like, okay, well, you're out of Philadelphia, which is a very aggressive sports city,
Yes.
to say the least, and so you're out of there. You're in Brooklyn, which there's still pressure because it's New York, but um, you have to think like, do you just take a swing on the upside? Because I mean, we've seen what he did in the past, and he really was missing just a reliable mid-range jumper, because he didn't even need to be like a good three-point shooter. If he would have had just a reliable mid-range jump shot to be able to fall back on, you'd at least have to respect him, especially if he decided to jump out to beyond the arc. You know, if he was hitting 33%, like, you'd have to respect it. And then that would make him far more dangerous, because then it's like, okay, well, I got to defend him out there, and then he's going to blow by me. So it's frustrating to me to see this, because um, to be such a remarkable athlete, because he's a physical specimen in
Yeah.
every way, shape, and form. And uh, for him to be playing like this, I mean, you listed off that stat line. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
There's guys right now in the G League, if you put them in that spot, would do better. Like, guys just scraping and clawing, want to get in the league, and he's putting up those numbers at 35 million a year, and then
Yep.
he's gonna. I think the year after is gonna be 40. So you you have to find something to get out of it, but the Nets may just say, you know what, like, we got rid of Kyrie, we got rid of Durant, and if there's some team out there, somewhere out there, that is willing to just take that contract on, for maybe cap purposes, or if they can come to a buyout or something. But I don't see Ben Simmons being in Brooklyn next year. I would be surprised if he is.
Interesting. I have this question. What position do you view Ben Simmons as? Do you view him as now just a point guard, which he came into the league as? Do you view him as, I guess, a small forward, power forward? Do you view him as a small ball five? I feel like he's kind of just in that purgatory where
Yeah,
you just don't even know what he is at this point.
yeah. It's, I mean, depends on the team he's on. I think that plays a lot into it because I think when you look at him, just naturally speaking, I think of him as a power forward. You know that
Uh-huh.
based on his build and everything, like, he's a very athletic four. But uh, he he could be like a point forward where you running the offense through him, maybe up in the post, or if you want to let him build up steam from behind the 3-point line, everything. But I don't think there's many teams that are going to be willing to let him completely run their offense without
Yeah.
him having a 3-point shot. Like, you'd have to have snipers all
Mhm.
around him at all times because uh, otherwise no one's going to respect him and just they're going to let him stay out there. And um, and that's not going to help his psyche either, and I just I the root of I feel like the root of all of his issues is if he could just develop a reliable 3-point shot, like, he would not be going through a lot of this. And you see, and I know that you see this every year with a lot of NBA players where they're out doing runs with other guys, and
Yep.
the workout videos and stuff where and I'm seeing them hit threes and I'm
Yep.
just like, where's this at? Like, it has to be mental because why? How else would it be? Because it seems like you have the reflex there. But yeah, I see him as like a weird, and he could be a small ball five, but that I think would be kind of awkward at times.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I don't know because he has all the tendencies of a point guard. He just can't shoot, and that's rough. Like, this isn't the 80s or 90s. Like, he can't get away with that anymore. But I don't know.
Yeah. I, I would say probably a small ball five, and just if he's out there and you just gotta surround him with shooters, I think that's probably just the best bet for him at this
Yeah.
point. And then moving on to play number two that got shut down today, Damian Lillard. I know my co-host Daniel and I, we've talked about Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers a fair amount of times, and just we don't know what the organization is doing. And the Blazers have just kind of just fallen off out of the playing race, and they're kind of just calling it quits at this point. I believe Jeremy Grant's injured. I believe Nurkic is out, and you have Damian Lillard on top of that. So it's just basically a bunch of young guys just playing freely and see what happens. At the deadline, I wasn't necessarily sure what their direction was. They traded Josh Hart, shockingly, in my opinion. Didn't really see why they needed to trade him to the Knicks. Great get for the Knicks to trade Cam
Oh,
Reddish for him, but
yeah.
um, Cam Reddish, I kind of was holding out hope for him. I mean, he had connections with the Lakers, and I was saying, hey, just trade like Kendrick Nunn in a second for him and
Yeah,
just take a chance on him, man.
definitely.
I see on the Blazers he started initially, and now he's just barely getting any minutes with just a bunch of guys out, which is kind of disappointing. And now the Blazers are kind of left with Jeremy Grant's a free agent this offseason. We'll see what they do there. I believe they offered him an extension, but he declined it. So kind of betting on himself in a sense. I think if you're the Blazers, you're probably going to want to hold on to him, pay him whatever he wants, because then again, you are kind of a small market, and this free agency class isn't the strongest. And now you're in a position where I believe they're like the eighth youngest team in the league, and you have Damian Lillard on your team, which makes zero sense to me. And now you are going into another season, 2 years in a row where you're not making the playoffs. Granted, last year Dame missed basically a good amount of the year, and kind of just don't know where you go with this off season. I don't know what your targets are. I don't know how you build this team out. You also traded for Matisse Thybulle, which I guess was cool. Um, I mean, he lit up my Lakers. That he drilled 4 threes on us, which definitely rubbed me the wrong way. But I mean,
Understandable.
you take a chance on him. We'll see what happens there, but I
What
just don't know, man.
I find frustrating about the Trailblazers is that they traded for Jeremy Grant, which I thought was a smart move. Like
Yeah,
that made sense to me, and I was like, okay, so you had Inferny Simons and Nurkic. He's
yeah,
he's a shell of what he used to be. He used to be very good, and that they had gotten to the conference finals, and I think what was it 2019,
I
and they
believe so.
kind of
Yeah,
peaked at that point, and they were lucky to get there. Like they
yeah,
really scraped tooth and claw to get there, but they 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 decided they made. I don't know if this is like a full Blazers effort, like where that's what they thought was great, and they went after it this off season, and that's what they viewed as going after it. But um, they it's a mess, and they're right now with where they're going to finish. I think right now they're like
I believe
the 12th or
13th.
13th seed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a lottery pick, but it's not
Hmm.
going to be a game changing pick. Like they're not going to have a chance at Scoot or Wembanyama or probably even Brandon Miller, the Thompson brothers either potentially. So they would really have to get lucky, or maybe Adam Silver pulls a 90s Ewing and gets them a number one pick or something. But um, they so they can blow it up this offseason. They can um, they're there's going to be a number of teams, despite Lillard's age, that would love to
Yeah.
have him. I mean, he's still. I feel he's got another 3 to 4 really good years left in him. At 32, and I think he's kept himself in pretty damn good shape to the point where, like, okay, you could depend on him. I would say at least 2 to 3 years. So you put him on a team that's close to contention, or they're just missing that last piece. And if that team doesn't have to gut their roster to get him, which I know that the Blazers going to want a
Yeah.
treasure trove of picks and assets, but um, they they need to do something. They need to like just go full rebuild because they've been kind of walking on eggshells there. It's like
Hmm.
they're not willing to go full rebuild, and because they're like loyalty to Damian Lillard, but they're not getting him what he needs either. So you need to just make a final decision on that. And I think this year was just so telling. Now to their credit, Simons was out for periods of time. So was Grant, Nurkic. So they couldn't stay healthy. But even if they stayed healthy, I think their ceiling was maybe the 9 or 10 seed.
Yeah.
They were not going to be contenders in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, I love the way that Damian Lillard plays. I really respect him and his level of loyalty to the Trailblazers. But I think that the Blazers just need to out of courtesy to him, he's got another couple years left. Let that man chase a ring and go and get it. And kind of solidify his Hall of Fame case. But um, to just keep him there and just like it's just frustrating. It's like
Yeah.
why you keep doing this to this guy? Like he put up 71 points at like 32 years old.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
it's just yeah, it's nuts. And so yeah, I hope they, for his sake, they move on from him and maybe they just start rebuilding again. But man, it's a tale as old as time with the Trailblazers. If they miss on the right guy, you go all the way back to the 70s. They had Bill Walton, and he couldn't stay healthy, and then they go and draft Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and all these other guys in the '85 draft, and then they had those great teams in I think the early 2000s, late '90s, the Jailblazers. And they got very close to the finals a couple of years, and now it's like you got this like another superstar, Damian Lillard, and you just cannot put the pieces around him. It's just the Trailblazers are just a mess of an organization, and it's just like they either swing or miss, or they get the right guy and then they can't put it together. And plus they had Clyde Drexler during the '90s. They got to the finals, and then Michael Jordan, but so it's rough. They I don't know, but they should have just. I felt like this year, that previous offseason, they should have just gone full tank, because then it's like now you're looking at getting again like Scoot Henderson, Wembanyama, just game changing, generational, organizational changing players that you can build around. And now it's like you're going to miss out on that, and who knows what's coming up in the next couple of years. So
Yeah, and I believe Shams reported that they're going to have some serious conversations, or at least he expects there to be. And what are the chances you think Dame is going to get traded from Portland this offseason?
I think they're as high as they've ever been. If you look at previous off seasons, they're, I think, like last year, after the abdominal injury, like, I could see that, but then they decided to double down and try to figure it out. And then those couple years before 2019, where they just like were first round exits perpetually, but now it's like, you're looking at his age, you're looking at the team that you have constructed around him, the money you have invested in certain players, and plus the roster's not constructed well either. It's just kind of a mishmash of players that, some of them, like you got, again, like you mentioned, Cam Reddish, you have Nasir Little, Simons is good, but outside of that, it's just, can you sign Grant back? Because there's going to be teams willing to throw a lot of money at him. And Nurkic is just, he's on his last leg. So I don't really know what you build around outside of Simons. You have some guys with some promise, but, I think the chances are pretty high. I don't see a way around it. I don't, if the Trailblazers somehow rationalize keeping him and still trying to build around him after everything that they've done, it would require something miraculous. I mean, it would just, I don't know how that would transpire, but I don't see how they don't trade him. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the trade Dame train last year, and part of me says he's probably going to be back in Portland this year. I just don't think, unless Dame says something, he's not going to get moved.
I wouldn't be surprised,
They
like
should trade him, definitely. But yeah.
if I'm putting myself in the Blazers front office, I'm trading him. But
Mm-hmm.
would I be surprised if we get back to, we get to next season and he's still a Blazer? No, but I for his sake, I hope he's not. But
And then you find yourself in a lottery position, and it's kind of like, what do you do with the pick? Because you're trying to win with Dame. Obviously, adding another young piece to your team is not helping you win now. So, do you trade the pick? How valuable is the pick? It's don't know, man. The Blazers are
or
interesting.
and that's where it comes down to their position too. Like, you've already got in the Western Conference, the Blazers are the 13, and you got the Spurs and you got Spurs, Rockets, and then in the East, you've got off the top of my head, you got the Hornets,
Detroit.
Detroit, and Magic are kind of down there too. So like,
Yeah.
the Trailblazers are probably, if everything goes to plan, they might be looking at like a 7 or 8 pick in the draft. So do you say, okay, well, we have Fernie Simons and we've got this 7th or 8th pick. Do we trade up and see if anyone's willing to, get us in maybe the top 4, and it also depends on, again, they could get lucky, with the draft odds and somehow they get like a 4 or 5 pick, but um, they I think if I'm Portland, um, you blow it up and then maybe take a swing and try to. So I don't think anyone with the number 1 pick is going to be willing to trade it away.
Yeah.
But
No.
I think depending on how it shakes out, like say the Pistons get the number 2 pick, they already have Cade Cunningham, so
Mhm.
they may say, okay, well, a team like the Blazers willing to trade up, if they're willing to go far enough for it, they could get the number 2 pick because then they can get Scoot Henderson or maybe Brandon Miller. So depends on how all that shakes out. But I think that's the only reasonable way forward. If they rebuild and then they get a solid piece that they can build around. But they'd be swinging for the fences there.
Mm-hmm. That was a lot of Portland Trailblazers talk. Portland figured out. That's all I gotta say.
Right.
And then I kind of see the sentiment flowing around. I kind of just thought about this right now. Personally, I am a Zion Williamson owner in fantasy, and granted, he was great on my fantasy team, and then he kind of had his hamstring issue.
Yeah.
And I believe Chris Haynes last night during the Warriors game says, I believe next week they're going to reevaluate him. And even if all goes well and he's able to ramp up, get back out there, that leaves him like 2 games to play. And then you're in a play-in or playoff scenario, most likely. I would probably say play-in, but
Yeah.
granted, they've been delicate with Zion all year long. And do they really push him back out there with 2 games left? I don't think so. Interested to see what they do. But if I had to put money on it, they're probably not going to rush him back out there, but we'll see. But obviously, he missed all of last year. He's only played 29 games this year.
Yeah.
He played 24 his rookie year. He played 61 his second year. And I know people have kind of just said that, oh my God, when he's out there, he's awesome. Yeah, but are you willing to just put up with like 30 games a year of Zion? Probably not. Not saying that I would trade him necessarily. I've kind of just seen it in the Twitter world. I saw Kendrick Perkins talk about it. He's not my favorite analyst, if you want to call him that, but
But yeah, that's generous.
yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of him. But
No.
he said he would trade Zion Williamson. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are. Don't know if I'd go that far to trade him. Obviously, he's a generational talent. He's still got a lot of hype around him. Yes, I'm very concerned about the games he's playing. When he missed last year, we had all the Zion weight memes going around, the Mountain Dew commercials as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot to be concerned about, but I don't think you necessarily jump the gun here if to trade him, even though he's only played technically 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, I personally wouldn't trade him. I mean, it's a part of me thinks like with any team that has him, they just need to say, okay, he's gonna play 50 games for us. Like he's just we're gonna keep him at this like cutoff threshold where it's like, okay, his body and the way he plays is just it's not sustainable. I
Mhm.
don't feel, and he would either need to slim down and just, and I don't know how you feasibly do that, but or you just say to him, hey, like, we don't want you doing uh the problem with guys like Zion Williamson, and that's similar body builds to like Charles Barkley and everything, but um is their knees and their ankles are just
Yep.
continually going to be taking a beating because for their size, they're large, they're muscular, and they're every time you come down from leaping that hard up at the rim, you're coming down on those ankles and knees every time. And
Hmm.
it's I mean, it's thrilling to watch, but he's he's setting himself up for a short career. But um, when they kind of there was a period of time where they were kind of running their offense through him when Ingram went down, and he was
Yeah.
putting up like godlike video game numbers, and his uh, his passing ability is very underrated. He he makes a lot of the right reads. He's putting the ball where it needs to go, and he has a respectable enough 3-point shot to where you have to respect him out there. And I mean, overall, I would say that um, I wouldn't trade him, but that would command such an immense haul to
Hmm.
get him, and that we've heard a couple. I know that the Knicks for a while wanted him, and there's rumors of mutual interest there. But if you're the Pelicans, do you kind of just like throw the bait out there and say, hey, like let's just see, like what can we really get? But I'm sure like David Griffin has had those kind of conversations around the league, but um, I think you got to give it another year. I wish that Zion would have been healthy for most of this year because that lineup with him, Ingram, McCollum, and then you've got Valanciunas, and then I'm not sure who they would have at the other spot. Maybe Herb Jones or
Yeah, they start him
um,
for the most part.
yeah. So I mean, it's their roster, and they've got some guys on their bench too that I think like Dyson Daniel, a rookie, and um, they've got a pretty promising team on
Hmm.
paper, and there's a reason why they're still kind of hanging around right there in that spot. But um, is this going to be perpetually an issue every year where it's just like they're kind of on the brink of contending, but Zion can't stay healthy, and then Ingram has injury problems too. So it's just I don't know what you do there. I think you give it
Hmm.
another year or two because there's a lot of money invested in him, and
Yeah.
um, New Orleans is not the same type of basketball market as other places. But I don't know. I wouldn't trade him, but I would at least listen. See what's out there.
Yeah, for sure. And then moving on to a thing that made me smile greatly. LeBron James came back this past weekend, um, very suddenly. Honestly, we saw
Yeah,
um, gone, get upgraded to doubtful to questionable game time decision. Ultimately, got the green light to play. Came off the bench for the second time in his career against the Chicago Bulls, and he looked good. Had 5 turnovers, which is kind of expected. Didn't really practice with the team. It was kind
right.
of just like he in the moment kind of thing. But yeah, I thought he looked good. Just overall for the Lakers wasn't a great outing. Um, this Anthony Davis situation is kind of wearing me out. One game
I bet.
against the Thunder, he puts up like 32 and 17. Then this game where Vucevic gets ejected, he only puts up 8 shots. You have Malik Beasley taking like 14 threes.
Jeez.
You have Troy Brown launching up threes. You have those two guys taking more shots than AD, which is obviously a red flag.
Yeah,
And but kind of just focusing back on LeBron, I think obviously you would love to have him back. He said that he tore a tendon in his foot, and he was the doctors said that he's the fastest healer they've ever seen with this kind of injury.
Mhm.
So obviously, coming down the stretch here, situated at the ninth seed. If we win tonight, we go back up to eighth because we have the tiebreaker with the Pelicans. But
Mhm.
LeBron coming back is obviously huge. It's going to be interesting to see how we kind of figure it all out because with D'Lo and all our other acquisitions together against the Pelicans before All Star break, I believe it was, we looked really good, and D'Lo's probable tonight, so those three guys will be there, and I think sky's the limit with this team. I think even though we've had our fair share of blown opportunities, I think our realistic goal is try to get to that seventh seed. Don't
Yeah.
don't like our chances on the road in any situation, whether that be hypothetically New Orleans, Golden State, especially not Golden State, Minnesota in there as well. They've looked good recently, but yeah, LeBron currently questionable for today's matchup against the Bulls. Interested to see if he gives it a go. I'd like to think he does, but in his first game back, showed noticeable signs of rust, but overall looked pretty solid in my eyes.
Yeah, I think best case scenario for the Lakers from my vantage point is if they can get to the seventh seed and they end up surviving through the play-in. You If they end up playing the Grizzlies, I think that's their best case scenario in the first round because I think that they could probably match up well against them. And if you can kind of get in Dylan Brooks's head and just make him do some stupid stuff, you know, get him off his game, whatever. But I think in a very, I think the Lakers uh, could upset the Grizzlies in the first round. I think that's possible. I don't find it likely, but um, I do think that somewhere in this realm of reality, I could see it happening. I think if they survive the play-in, but then they got to face the Nuggets in the first round, I I personally like. I think Grizzlies would be best case because you know, they're not going to be at the sixth seed, but I wouldn't want to play the Kings in the first round, and I wouldn't want to play the Suns in the first round. So if they play the Grizzlies, and then they survive past that, and then depending on the results of that first round, if they can get a matchup against another kind of lower seeded team, and then they can kind of sneak into the conference finals, and then all of a sudden, it's it's no longer a matter of your regular season record. It's everything is out on the line, and then all that veteran leadership you have from their previous finals win with AD and LeBron, all that starts to factor in a lot more when it comes to the playoffs. So, I think the potential is there, but there would have to be a lot that goes right, and
Mhm.
you know, guys start playing really well, all and gelling at the same time. And um, the one thing with the Lakers right now, Vanderbilt is a menace. Like he's just
Love that guy.
all over the place, all the time. And I think that factor alone kind of helps them against any team that they have to face. Because you've got a guy that defensively is just going to disrupt their opposing team's best player, and just do the the down and dirty type of things to get you wins. That's extremely valuable. So um, I do think I mean, based on where they were at the deadline versus now, dramatically different team, and I think that the upside is definitely there.
Yeah, for sure. We have another guy returning today, the time of this recording.
Mm.
Kevin Durant unfortunately suffered a warm up injury. Suffered like a wet spot, twisted his ankle. His ankle touched earth, and he's kind of just been out for a couple weeks now, making his return tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And kind of just getting your thoughts. How far do you think the Suns can go with KD there? Personally, I'm not a fan of their depth. I
Yeah.
could potentially see them get into the conference finals. Don't know if I put them in the finals, or if they get there, I don't know if I put them over like teams like the Bucks or Boston necessarily.
No, I think in either scenario, if they make it to the finals, they're going to lose. But I think if they get to the conference finals and they have to play either the Nuggets or Kings, I think they're in trouble. Um, they, as you said, the depth is a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
Past their starting lineup, it's sparse at best, and so you're going to have to kind of stagger the minutes of Booker, Durant, Paul, and Ayton to kind of stretch that out enough to where you can maintain a high enough offensive pace without sacrificing too many minutes with all of them apart. Um, and that's going to be a task for the head coach there. And I don't like him. If they had another piece or two, that's where I feel like a guy like Jay Crowder, if they would have just kept him somehow. I know that they needed the pieces to trade for Durant, but um, yeah, I don't see them, and I could see him bouncing in even the second round. I mean,
Ooh.
we're thinking about uh, a team with Chris Paul. I think it goes without saying, historically speaking, Chris Paul, whether it's with the Rockets, the Clippers, has historically struggled to stay healthy during this time of year. So um, that may not be the case this year, but Chris Paul isn't really as Chris Pauly, if that makes sense, this year. So um, I Durant is going to be a huge part of if they're going to go as far as I think he can take them,
Yeah.
because you can't really put the franchise on Booker's shoulders. I mean, he's a fantastic scorer. Don't get me wrong, but um, he doesn't just quite have th- that intangible to get you there. But having him paired with Durant, um, and then if they can feed the ball to Ayton more, and that's I've been saying that for years, is
So,
DeAndre Ayton is just being wasted there. He
yeah.
doesn't even want to be there anyways, but it's that's I find that frustrating about the Suns. But I could see him getting to the conference finals, but I if you told me that they got beat in the second round by a team like the Kings, or um, even I wouldn't go as far as to say the Clippers. I think that would be a little heretical, but um, yeah, they just don't have the depth. Like the year that they went to the finals against the Bucks, they had a far more deep team,
Yeah.
with Bridges and Cam Johnson and Crowder, and so you know they're gonna, I think, struggle. But I know on paper it's sexy to say, oh well, they got Durant, Booker, they got all
Yeah.
these, but like you can't play those five guys for the whole game. They
Mhm.
need to rest. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not optimistic with the Suns though. I think something's going to go wrong.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, then, kind of just to wrap out the show here, we're going to do some Western Conference playing predictions here. I'm going to pull up the standings right now. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of movement going on a day to day basis. But just starting off with you, I guess we can kind of just go from 6 to 10. Who do you view the final standings once all said and done?
I think the Warriors are going to stand pat with where they are. I think
Okay.
the Wolves might drop a game or two. Um, I I think the Pelicans might fall. I see maybe I think Thunder finish at 10. And then I think Pelicans finish at 9, Lakers at 8, and the Timberwolves at 7. So I think there's a little bit of shifting, and then the Warriors will kind of maintain where they're at. So I do see the Lakers and Pelicans switching spots there, and the way that the Mavericks are playing, I don't see them creeping back in. I don't.
Wow.
It would take something pretty drastic in the way that they've been playing lately, especially with the Thunder and I would say the Thunder's strength of schedule is slightly easier with their last like 5-6 games. So um, that's might be a bold take. I would love to see the Mavericks get in because I think it would be at least exciting. But I think the Thunder, they've got a nice young squad of guys, and this is going to be a nice test for them. And going forward, and then they're going to get. I've heard the rumors that like Holmgren, maybe they bring him back for the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to take that chance. But yeah, that's where I see everything lining up. I think it's going to end up being that order. I think the Lakers will move up a spot and finish at 8, and then. But I could also see the Lakers creeping to 7. I could see that because I don't think I know that Cat is coming back for the Wolves, but that the chemistry there and the everything is still kind of clunky, and I don't think they've gotten that all figured out. So, yeah, I would say that that's the case.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I just have to believe that the Mavs would get 10. I think uh, Thunder probably fall out. So probably Mavs 10, Pelicans 8, or Pelicans 9. Might be a hot take. I'd probably put Minnesota 6
Ooh,
and go Lakers 8 and then Golden State 7.
interesting. Why? So you think the Warriors will drop down?
Because the Warriors can't win a road game. that's kind of why.
That is one of the most perplexing things about
9
this
and
season.
29 on the road.
Yeah, like I do not understand that at all. Because even if they were 500, they would be a 2 or a 3 seed probably right now. Because their home record is
Really
fantastic.
good. Yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting. We're coming down to the wire here. I believe like probably 2 or so weeks left. I want to say in the year, so we're in for one heck of a finish, and that will do it for this episode of the Basketball Maestros. However you listened, thank you for listening, whether audio or video. Thank you, really appreciate it. And if you're new, we go live every Friday from 4 to 5, and feel free to keep checking us out. Check us out on all our socials, the Basketball Maestros on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And we will see you guys next time.